what was you was in 75th?
I think we took your wagon. What do you need? Is it gonna train?
Oh yeah. Hard up the baby.
That's right. Homework. And the buildings out there, he's had more neighbors due to that. They were like salesmen or whatever they were, and then it's going to get transferred. We get a new guy.
Greatest generation. Yay! That's us, guys. That's us. And here's the form. I feel like we get somebody to sign. Make a text it out. I think I'll get somebody to sign it here.
Yeah, little girls do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's long time ago. Long time ago. But it still stays with you.
But he's got out.
Yeah, it was, well, some of the guys that were from 412.
But there was the guy that
When the Germans attacked one side of Bastogne, Bastogne wasn't the only part of the Bulge, but it was a major part. When they attacked one side of the Bastogne, all the heavy weapons and so on were brought over to that side, and it appeared to the Germans like we had all that. Then they attacked the other side. All the stuff was brought over there. If they'd ever attacked both sides at once, we'd have been in real trouble. But it was wonderful. It was great the way the outfits that were in there handled the situation.
Now you guys went in. You guys are pretty much credited with rescuing the 101.
Yes, but
I know it's kind of.
yes, but they were the ones that did the job.
Yeah.
No, we came in, and I say we came in from the south. We had troops coming in from the north. Everybody but Montgomery, he fiddled around and did something else on his own.
Have you ever been so cold in your life?
I think that was the coldest.
Yeah. It's just amazing what I've read about what you guys were, what it put you guys through. It's just
Yep.
unbelievable. Today, do you have people coming up when they find out you're a World War II veteran? Do they tell you how much they appreciate it? Do you see that a little bit now?
No,
No?
no, I'll tell you, though, we had, I don't know if I should say this, we had a reunion in Colorado Springs a few years ago. I arranged for a television station to come out and interview people. They had the interview, they had the cameraman and the woman who asked questions. I say the woman who asked questions. To me, she was kind of a young girl, but everybody's young, you know, at our age. Anyway, she asked the questions. At the end of the last interview, she said, well, who won that war? But we had a good response from him. He said, if they had won, you would be speaking German now. But, you know, wow, that's deep.
Pretty eye-opening, especially someone in her position, really.
Right. And the thing is, so many people don't know. They don't know what happened.
I'm going to be here all week. And I wanted, while I've got you here, as far as, did you have faith Did you have any religious faith going into that? If you
Yes.
did, how did it affect you day to day?
I am sorry to say that it didn't affect me as much as it should have. I was a young kid, and as a young kid, I didn't think about death. I didn't think about being injured. I didn't think about anything. I had a job to do. I did the job. And all of us were young kids. I happen to be one of the youngest. I'm only 79 now.
So you were what, 19?
I was 19 after the war was over when I got back to the States.
How old were you when you went in?
17. Now, the only people who were younger than me in World War II were those who lied about their age and got in at 16 or 17 or 15. Some of them got in at 15.
Now, how did you get just day after day after day after day? Because I know you were seeing people, being wounded and killed. What got you through day after day after day to keep on going?
We had a job to do. We needed to win the war. That's really all.
It's just duty.
Right. This day it was this job. The next day it was another job. I might be walking. I might be driving. No matter what we were doing. I happened to be in recon. So we had foot patrols out through the enemy lines. We had motor patrols. We had sometimes we fought as infantry. And that's where I got wounded when we were fighting as infantry. Yes, I'm in a wheelchair from World War II. We were to take a town, and we got some resistance. So we were out in the field, no cover. We were out in the field, and we got shelled. Two things happened to me then. I got shrapnel. I got frozen legs. And you talk about frostbite. Sometimes it's minimal, sometimes it's serious. In my case, as they put me on, I went back on a Jeep stretcher, and as they put me on a stretcher, somebody took his knuckles and knocked on my leg. That's the lower leg, not the foot. It sounded like a piece of wood. So, I mean, it was frozen. And when I got out of the service, I was told that I would lose my legs as I got older. Thankfully, I haven't. I've done a lot of swimming. Well, what doesn't matter what. Exercise keeps the blood circulating. It's helped me. I don't know if whether I'll lose them. Who knows? But I have them now. And I keep on swimming in competition.
Are you able to stand?
I don't stand, no.
Looking on all of that, do you still wake up some nights and there's still some things that are just too painful?
I don't have a problem with memories. The only thing that I have a problem with, if I get a sudden, unexpected, loud noise, I can't control my muscles. They will all contract. My legs, my arms, everything contracts. I have no control over it. I wish now, if I know that it happened and I'm ready for the next one, it doesn't bother me. But if it's unexpected and sudden and loud,
And do you think that's from your memory of hearing this?
that is from the war. I'm glad that's the only thing.
More fortunate than a lot of us.
Yes.
And it's Wayne Field, F-I-E-L-D, with the 6th Armored 86th Cavalry Recon Squadron. And we're
Colorado Springs. I came originally from New York State. When I got into the Army, I was from upstate New York. But I'm so thankful that the company transferred me to Colorado Springs afterwards. It's a wonderful place to live. You wouldn't believe that I'm a member of the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce, would you? never heard of computers. Well, anyway, I felt computers in the future. And I started interviewing with a few companies. Both research and development, and that was IBM. Both continuing with interviews. I figured the first one to get me and offer me a job I'll take. It happened to be Wolge. And I learned about computers. I didn't know anything about computers. And so I learned. And hey, it was wonderful. I got transferred to Colorado Springs from Massachusetts. I got transferred to Colorado Springs with NORAD, with Wolf Research for NORAD. I wrote the first computer operating system for 2 of the computers in Cheyenne Mountain.
Wow, wow. Impressive.
And, you know, I'd like to say something. Really, maybe this is anti-present day programming. When I released the program, it always worked for because they spent some time checking it out. I wish Microsoft could say that.
Yeah, there'd be too many beta releases and then they go back and even full releases. They have to go back and fix it.
Well, I hope to talk to you again. I'll be here all week.
This has been fun.
Yeah, well,
I'm in for a fun week, I can
I
tell.
didn't expect you were going to come over and interview me.
you got something?
At April 2nd, 1945, I was the first one in the column going down the road. We made a turn, so they had me stay there to direct the rest of the traffic. After they all came through, I waited a while to make sure we got on any stragglers. When they all came through, I stepped on it to get on down to catch up with them. Well, it seems they were fired on. And so they went off to the side of the road into the woods. I didn't know this. I kept on going down that road. I got down, I had 2 other people with me in the Jeep. I had, as we got close to the town of Hessisch-Lichtenau in Germany, over to my left I saw a tank. I said, look at that knocked out tank and those kids playing on it. When the turret started turning around toward us, I realized, and I said, I guess that's not a knocked out tank and those aren't kids. We kept on going. We drove right into the town, hid in the basement of one of the houses, one of the buildings. Unfortunately, they didn't find us.
Did you feel that was God protected?
Well, oh yes, no question about it, no question about it. At that time, they took my Jeep, they stripped it, they took my .30 caliber machine gun off. When we got it back and got the body straightened out because they kind of wrecked it a little, I put a 50 caliber machine gun on it. I don't think anybody in the war had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted ahead of the passenger side on the Jeep. They were all mounted in the back. And okay, another time after I got that, we were stopped. We were at an intersection of the Autobahn. We had an armored car and my Jeep. We, well, as an example, a German soldier came over and stepped on his own mine, and didn't survive it too well. But there was an airplane that flew over, and well, first of all, I know that you don't unload you have short bursts in a machine gun. There's 55 rounds. Is that right? 55 rounds, I think. Seems like there's more than that. But anyway, I let loose with one burst with a whole box of ammunition. And it didn't burn the barrel, it didn't melt the barrel like they told me it would. At one airplane, and I'm a pretty good shot. I didn't hit that. I didn't knock down that airplane. God said that wasn't his time. I'm sure. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. No, I knew I could shoot. I knew that shouldn't have happened, but it happened.
You know, the famous Ernie Pyle said,
Yes and no. Not calling it prayer, but simply talking with God. There's a kind of a formal prayer, you know, you start out a certain way and end a certain way. And there's another, you're just communicating. And it just felt like I was communicating at times. And I am so thankful that I was taken care of. I mean, that's the only reason I'm here today, is I was taken care of.
Did you ever feel God instructing you, telling you, speaking to you? Maybe not in an audible sense, obviously, but maybe giving you some direction and guidance?
Not that I have many times since, but not during the war. Thank you.
Anyway, he said a lot. He said a lot. In the war, and since he came home, he's said a lot. And he's, how old is he, 92? No, of course not 92. He's 87. 87. That's our division number, 87. If he make the year. If you make the year. He's a good man, all right. How many marriages have you had? Only one. He's a real true and blue man. When did she die? 87 again. So living all by yourself since all those years.
No, I live with my son.
Your son, yeah.
All right, are you, Ralph, are you seated? George? Welcome to the Holiday Inn, everybody. This is the Pittsburgh Holiday Inn. And I'm using the mic. Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, welcome to this Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge 24th Annual Reunion. This wine and cheese reception is with the compliments of the hotel, Holiday Inn. You know, they just recently had a $6 million dress. I hope that all of that is reflected in your room. Maybe not, I don't know. I want to thank Rose Pascal. She's the sales representative here. And she's been very helpful in planning this reunion. We've been here a year ago. She's been with us all the while. She's gone even beyond her real duties to help us make this a good reunion. And for your entertainment, we have of your youth. He used to be with the Three Sons. Many of you will recall about 40 or 50 years ago. Is that right, Eddie?
That's right.
He played with the Three Sons.
Twilight Time.
Twilight Time, that's right. Many of you will recall that. He'll play many tunes. He's going to play Lily Marlene, and we're going to have a choir singing Lily Marlene, composed of John McAuliffe and George Watson and 4 or 5 other people. And so pay close attention to the scheduling. There's some changes in time. Mainly the one on Friday when we go to the high school here, Moon Township High School. That's just down the road about 5 miles. We'll have three buses to transport you there. We thought we'd only have one bus and we'd have to alternate and take you there. We have to be there by 8:30. I understand there's going to be a big crowd, about 500 high school students who know no rehearsals, so we think it's going to turn out pretty good. So here is Dave Shaw to give you more details on these.
Will be posted on the bulletin board. They'll be posted in the hospitality suite, and we're going to constantly go over them. The changes so far are Friday morning. The current time is 9:30. The correct time is 8 a.m. for the Moon Township bus trip to the high school. That's 8 a.m. And we're going to have 3 buses so everybody can go over at one time. And the next...
There's Jim Morrow.
He's setting up shop and have a
That was in Bastogne.
Oh, okay. These are good, Marty.
I think to make a documentary about it. It might be on the History Channel.
See this guy here? You know who that is? I think I do know who it is. Was there a guy on the trip by the name of Herb Ridyard? Charlotte, do you remember that name, Ridyard? Was he on the trip? Herb Ridyard?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Her first name is Rose, but I can't remember her last name. She's in the video presentation.
Yes, we were waiting for the minutes.
I don't know whether she I had a high house.
And that's a nurse right over here.
You guys mind if I got a picture of both of you together? Get a picture. I'm gonna take a picture. Everybody close. Ready?
You ready? Look up, Marty. Look up.
Thank you.
What's your first name?
It's Dimitri.
Dimitri. I'm Ralph.
But my daddy was, so.
After we were in the ninth army for about 4 months, and we were in different occupation tests.
That time, that hotel is when McGuire had set the record for home run. Remember that?
And tell me your name.
William, but I prefer to be called Bill. Tuley, T-U-L-E-Y.
All right. And your, what was your unit?
87th Infantry Division.
Okay. I've met quite a few folks from the 87th.
Good.
All right. Well, spell your last name.
T-U-L-E-Y.
All right. And tell me again where you live. Where you from?
Merrillville, Indiana.
Okay. I'm going to fix that cord just a little bit. Oh, good. All right. Just don't want to see that. There we go.
You want me to talk into this?
No, no, sir. You'll be just talking into that microphone that's on. You can just hold that in your lap.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to just start asking you some questions.
Sure.
How old were you when you started, when you went into service?
I was 28 years old.
Okay, you were one of the older guys.
I was one of the, in my company, only
two of the officers and the first sergeant were older than I was. I was with a bunch of kids, 18, 19, 20.
Did that worry you?
Yeah, and I was a staff sergeant, and I had to take care of the kids. I didn't realize they were going to be just kids with me, but they became men very quickly.
Did it concern you that there were so many young guys in that unit that weren't?
It didn't concern me, but it surprised me. But I was confident in myself that they would do what I wanted them to do. And I really wasn't concerned about their ability. I just hoped that, because you never know what the reaction is going to be until you actually get in combat. Some people can't take it mentally. A lot of them are upset, but they're able to continue to do their job, you know, even though it's a frightening experience.
Now, where was your unit at the beginning, during the surprise?
Okay, we were in Germany when the Battle of the Bulge started. And we were one of the two divisions that General Patton turned his Third Army around and sent it back into the Bulge. We were one of two divisions that he sent in because at the beginning they were getting crucified. And it was a surprise attack, of course, and they weren't prepared for it. And the sad part of it is intelligence reports coming in indicated that the Germans were massing for an attack across the Belgian border. And they paid little attention to it. They didn't believe the reports that were coming in because they thought that the Germans had been defeated in France, and it was just a matter of time until the surrender would come. Well, the Germans weren't beaten, and they were bringing people in from the Russian front even. I brought it from all over. They got brand new kids, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they mounted this massive attack. And the Americans were outnumbered 6-1 at the beginning, but our manpower and no end of replacements kept coming in, and by the time the Bulge was over, why, we outnumbered them, God, 10-1.
I remember in the, now were you in Bastogne? Did you make it to Bastogne?
No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Was that, were you ever scared? Really, you know, and by that I don't mean just a little worried, but I mean, you know, truthfully scared.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think any soldier that tells you that he is not scared in combat, he's a liar, because you're bound to think of what might happen to you, and but you can't let it overwhelm you. And
now some of the young guys, and I was talking to some of them last night, and they were telling me, you know, some of those were, you know, 19-year-old guys, and maybe even some younger, and they were a little fearless. Were you a little different because you were a little older than them? Were you?
No.
Did you see the fearlessness in there?
I was afraid, but I had two things. I was a staff sergeant, and I didn't dare show my fear, and I had to worry about these 18, 19-year-old kids. And I wrote a story recently about it. You worry about the kids because you're not sure what their reaction is going to be. And you become a father to these kids. And one episode that I can remember it well, one of my men was wounded, and he was dying, and he knew it, I knew it, and I tried to tell him that he would be okay. And I cradled him in my arms. And I got his blood on my hands. I got his blood on my uniform. And I kept comforting, saying, now you're going to be all right. I'll take care of you. And when he died, I just laid him on the ground very gently and continued on my duties. But I brought comfort to him in his dying moments. And I like to think that I was comforted knowing that I had comforted him. So he left this world comforted, and I felt good about having helped him along his path.
And I know you continue after an incident like that, and that was because you had a job to do.
Yeah.
When did all of that sort of hit you, of what you had experienced? Because you had to just keep pushing that somewhere.
Yeah.
To keep going.
Well, the weather was so bad in the Bulge, it occupied a lot of your mind, because we're in knee-deep snow and we're in below zero temperature most of the time, and you worried more about the weather than you did the enemy, because worried about frostbite, frozen feet, frozen ears, and we fought in the Battle of the Bulge. We wore our winter dress uniforms. Not enough, not near enough. And the weather consumed much of our thought until in an actual battlefield, of course, why then you think about your mission, what's facing you, and so on. But in between time, you hated the weather. And a combat soldier, the worst thing for him mentally is waiting to go into action. And if there's too much of a delay, it begins to wear on you mentally. And sometimes it's tough to deal with.
Well, does all of that stuff eventually come back?
Oh.
To really overwhelm you?
Oh,
About what you saw?
Yeah, sure. And you look back on it and you think, oh my God, how did I do that? How did I survive? You know, how could I be scared or frightened and still continue to go on and on and on? It's, how can you explain it? I can't explain it. But you know that you have to continue. So your determination overrides your fear.
Let me ask you about your religious beliefs at the time. Did you have a faith in God or a higher power when you went?
Yeah, I was a church man, church person. I was born and raised in, well, I just call it the First Christian Church in Hammond, where I was born. And yeah, I was church until I got up into my 20s, and then I fell away from church because I had a semi-professional baseball team in the summertime, and we traveled on weekends. And so I fell away from church then because I was never able to go. We'd be on the road on a Saturday and a Sunday. But yeah, when I went in, I still had enough of the faith in God. And I'll tell you this, many times I called on God to help me. And I think it is comforting. And I saw these young boys, I'll bet you those many of them hadn't been in a church since the day they were baptized, probably. But they turned to God. They asked for God's help. God help me, God help me. Sometimes they'd ask for their mother. Sometimes they'd even ask for me to help them. So it's, you never know what's going to come from the mouth of the kids, you know.
Did you ever feel God, did you ever see or suspect that God was watching out over you or your unit or the American soldiers?
I hoped that he was, but I can't say that I felt like he really was, but I can honestly say that I hoped God was going to get me through this.
Did you ever think maybe God had done something? I've heard some people tell stories of,
Yeah,
you know, miracles or
Yeah.
something similar. You ever witnessed anything like that?
no, I didn't. And afterwards, I thought, many times afterwards, a battle, I would think, well, for example, on December the 17th, my company lost over a company's 200 men, rifle company. My company lost over 100 men in one battle that lasted just 45 minutes. I was one of the survivors. And I thought, why me? By the end of the war, I was one of only 27 that survived from my company. And again, why me? You don't really question, you're not questioning God, you're not saying why me, but you're asking yourself, why me? Why did I survive and Joe, Jack, John didn't survive? You never know. One of the hardest things that happened, I had my assistant, I was a squad leader. My assistant squad leader was a sergeant, buck sergeant. I was staff sergeant. And late in the war, was pulled out of the company and sent back to a hospital. I had spent 8 months in the hospital in the States from a severe ankle injury. And somehow, I don't know how it happened, but a review of my records showed that I had spent 8 months in a hospital. And they thought, maybe this guy shouldn't even be there. So they ordered me back to a hospital we were in Belgium, ordered me back to a hospital where they could x-ray my ankle. So I turned my squad over to my assistant squad leader, Bill Fowler. The day I left was quiet. The day after I left, they were in action and Bill Fowler was killed. And I'm thinking, he died in my place. It took me many years to reconcile the fact that didn't necessarily mean that I would have been killed if I had been there. It was just one of those things. I would have been standing in the same place he was or whatever. It just happened. It was his time. But it took me a long time to accept that because I blame myself, but yet I didn't ask to go back. I was sent back. I never rejoined my company.
But I can see how you could think, especially someone, well, even someone who wasn't involved in church, who just had a casual belief in God would think, God must have a reason for me sticking around.
Oh, that's right.
Did you think?
And that's why you say, why? You know, you're searching for a reason.
Did you ever figure out if there was a reason?
No, you never. You go crazy trying to figure it out.
But did it affect your faith? Did you feel like you drew closer to God, or did
No, I felt very much like God had brought me through. I did really sincerely believe that God had brought me through that whole thing. But I still question why. But there was no answer to that.
Did you feel closer to God once you got out?
I don't say that I felt closer, but I felt like he had pulled me through. Now, I fully believed in God at the time and believe in God today. But I never once have wavered in my belief. I'm not a devout churchgoer today the way I was when I was younger, but I'm still a believer.
Looking back on those days 60 years ago, I'm amazed at how many details you guys remember.
Yeah. Well, you go through something like that, and it's you're never going to forget it. Some of the details of your stories may change a little bit. You don't quite remember exactly how it was, so you try to fill in. But the episodes are there, the stories are there, they did happen. And I just, to this day, I thank God that I was one of them that came home.
Great. And if you would, tell me your name again.
My name is Frank Dudash from Crown Point, Indiana.
And spell Dudash for me.
D-U-D-A-S-H. Okay. It's Slovak-Hungarian descent.
Okay. All right. And your company,
I was in a 4th Armored Division, 8 Tank Battalion, Company A of the 8 Tank Battalion. I ended up being the first sergeant of A Company, and I was a acting platoon leader in combat because of the shortage of officers. I was also offered a battlefield commission, and I refused it because you needed 85 points to go home. And I had 99, so I figured that's a better road to take. Although I continued to be a platoon leader in combat. I led many armored columns. In fact, in one of the columns that I had went from Jena, Germany to Chemnitz, Germany, captured a bridge over the Zigmald River, and we stayed there. It was about a distance of 57 miles. And they held us from going into Chemnitz because the Russians were on the other side. And they were scared if we went into town, which is a big city, Chemnitz. And they were scared we might be shooting at each other while we were in town. So they pulled us out, and I think it was the 89th Infantry relieved our position. And then we went all the way around the nose of Czechoslovakia, Beirut. I got a flag off a stadium at Beirut, a large Nazi flag that was it's about 12 foot long and about 4 foot high. And I use it at a lot of the schools that I give talks to. We usually talk to the 8th graders, 14-year-old kids. And when they see that, they're very impressed with it. I never washed it or nothing. It still has the German soil on it, you might say. And so we went into Czechoslovakia, and when we went there, there's a few stories I can tell about meeting the Russian troops, if you want me to go on with that.
Well, first of all, I want to know exactly where you were when Hitler launched the offensive. Where was your unit then, and what was the reaction? How big of a surprise was it?
You mean right after the Bulge?
Right as the Bulge started, right?
Yes.
December 16th.
Yes. In fact, we didn't know that the Bulge was there somewhere around December the 16th when it started, when they went through the 101st, which we didn't know. Mm-hmm. We were right around Nancy, France at the time, ready to go into Germany. And we got a call that night to go up north, that there was a problem up there. That's all they told us. So we had to take we were all unpacked like going into a rest area. So we had to go so fast, we were told within an hour we're going to move out. Back to our tanks, we went, got it prepared, put our stuff in tanks. At 11:50 that particular night, we took off, CCB of the 4th Armored Division, and we would go from one town to the other and didn't know, and they would tell us, after we had gone through one town, then a runner would come up and say, here's the next town that you go and follow this particular road. So we kept just angling up north till when we got up north, it took us approximately about 19 hours to get up there. And when
How old were you then?
I was 22 years old.
Okay.
And when we got up there, went right into combat. Snowing, of course, cold, and stuff of that nature. And I'll never forget, as soon as we got up there, we were assigned to the 1st Army. And we were told we were assigned to the 1st Army, and they made a task force. They call it Ezel Bell. The guy, that was the major's name, who was in charge of the task force, which was a company of medium tanks, a company of infantry, a battery of artillery, and trains, supplies. And we took off and went right down the road. And as we were going towards Bastogne, there's all kind of refugees coming out, and all kind of wagons and donkeys and animals that they had with them. I looked to my left, and there was a 2.5-ton truck in a ditch with the tank driver's head up against the windshield. You can see the scalp was peeled right off, laying on the windshield. You can see his brains. And we continued right into Bastogne. We were 1.25 kilometers in Bastogne. Ezel made contact with Colonel Roberts with the 9th Armored Division. And no sooner they shook hands, a message came over to get your ass out of here. You don't belong up here. You're not attached to that. So we just turned around and come right back out. We were in Bastogne. On our way out, we seen a big white track which just came off of a Tiger tank. And to our left front, we seen there was a bunch of artillery guns, 155 howitzers, that were deserted. They were black soldiers from the United States Army with white officers. The prime movers were still running. And Captain Kiley was, who was my CP at that, CO at the time, he says, hell, I begged for artillery many times. Let's go get those guns. We unhooked them from the prime movers, hooked them to the back of our tanks, and continued south. And there was a colonel, a white officer, jumping up and down, waving his arms, and he wanted his guns back. And Captain Carl just went like that to him, and kept right on going. So,
well, and I know you were a little bit older, I guess, than some of the guys.
Yes.
And still younger than some, but
yes.
How did you continue to go? And I know it was a job, but I know you had to be scared. How scared were you as a 22-year-old?
Well, that's a good question. I hear a lot of people say that if you don't say you're not scared, you're an idiot and you're lying or something like that. I actually was not scared as much as I was concerned. I was more concerned about what was going on and what my job was and who my mates, if they can hold out too. We were a well-trained outfit. The 4th Armored Division trained for 3 years before we went into combat. So we were a pretty crack outfit. And we were also trained to be real cocky at the same time and have that attitude. So I wasn't shaking anything. Once action started, it became a job, like you say. And I did my job and hoped, especially in tanks. There's 5 guys in that tank. I was a platoon leader. I was in charge of 5 tanks, so I had an entire platoon to take care of also. The other staff sergeant, I gave him a section, and I took the other sections. And whatever orders we had, I had a continuous conversation with my driver, T.W. Cleveland from Locust Grove, Georgia. He would see whatever he could see through the periscope of the tank, and whatever I could see of just poking my nose up out of the cupola and look around. Of course, heavy fire, you drop that latch down and you have a periscope. And I guess you know what those are. And so we had a consultation on regards to our problems.
Did you ever lose a man in the platoon?
Yes.
How hard was that?
Well, it's pretty rough. Pretty rough because you have camaraderie there. Even if, you worked as a team, we were a very good team. I can tell you one thing with it. One time we're going down the Autobahn, and the Germans knocked out 13 of our tanks out of 17. And I happened to be one that got away. And as I backed up, putting my heavy armor towards where we thought the guns were, what happened is we go around a curve like this on the Autobahn. Right in this here center was a battery of anti-aircraft 88s, dual purpose barrels. And when they seen us, they lowered those guns down. They would loaded one barrel with HE and the other barrel with AP. That's high explosive and armored piercing. And they let us have it. For 5 minutes, you couldn't see nothing but blue smoke throughout that whole valley. Couldn't even see, I didn't know who was knocked out in front of me or behind me or where the guns were at. I just had an idea of where the guns were at, and I started backing up and zigzagging as I backed up. And I picked up maybe 7 guys from my company, and they were riding, I jammed them in the tank, on top of the tank, and on the back deck, and kept going back and forth. The person, here comes a red ball up over my head, drops behind me. The second one drops right in front of the tank, throws dirt all over the tank, and I told TW, I said, turn this son of a bitch around. I said, because number 3 is us. And he turned it around, put it in 3rd gear, and away we went. Got behind a hill, and the major came up there and he says, sorry to see that little village over there. We got a ticket. We got to consolidate our forces. I says, I says, fine, but I says, I need infantry. You can't go through a town with tanks alone. You've got to have someone looking around the corners for you and waving you through and on. And he did. And we took the village, hardly any sweat, and we consolidated there.
When did you lose your platoon member?
What is that, sir?
When did you lose a member in your platoon? What happened there where you lost a member?
It was a airburst. An airburst, we had both hatches open, and in fact, I got it like that at Bastogne. Busted over the head, and it hit my loader, and it hit, what do you call it? Bog, which is the assistant driver. It had the hatches open because it was, faster. We didn't think the action was too heavy then, but then all of a sudden when the barrage came in, and they were, it was a pretty wooded area too, so that's why they dropped airburst down on us. And then those 2 guys got it.
What did that do to you?
Huh?
How difficult was that on you?
Well,
when did it kind of affect you? Was it then or was it later?
Later, because you try to help them. You try to do what you can for them first, and later on it sunk in, and it hurt. It really hurt, and that just goes on. I got 2 replacements, 18-year-old kids who only fired 5 rounds of ammunition in their training in the States and sent overseas. And here they give it to me in a tank. And I asked these kids, do you know what their weapons were? They didn't know what a 30 caliber machine gun looked like. So I set them in the turret of the tank, and I made both of them take this machine gun apart 150 times. Take it apart and put it back together. Then I blindfolded them and made them put it together, and they done it. I said, now I can depend my life on you, and you can depend your life on me. And they became excellent people, excellent people.
I don't know, if you don't mind me asking.
No, no problem.
Got over there, your faith in God. Did you believe in God? Did you have a faith in God when you first got over in World War II? And what happened to that faith? How did it change?
I think, yes, I had faith in God. Yes. I prayed. I'm a Catholic. I prayed a lot of Hail Marys and fast. And of course, when action comes, I thanked him when I got out of it. Also, I think my faith was fine. It was fine. I didn't say that I lost it or gained any. It was on about the same level because I always had faith in God and in the religion, the way I practiced it all my life since I was a kid.
Did you ever see God do anything there? Or did you ever see anything happen that you thought, this was God?
I'll give you a good example of that. we were in Germany somewhere, and there was a Y in the road where it was zeroed in on a cross. We couldn't make hardly a move. We come in there to bam, you know, it bang it away. There was only about 25 Krauts in holding that position with SS troops behind them, making them hold that position. I was between two buildings with my company commander and the other platoon leader with a map, and we were discussing on a situation and how we're going to attack this Y in the road. And then my tank was a little out of sight, and I motioned to another tank, get him on a radio, get him in level with the alleyway I had to run to so I could get to my tank. And they did. The tank moved up, and I took off. I had a map in my right hand, and I dashed for the tank, and I put one foot on the track, and I grabbed the handle of the latch this way, and my foot slipped off of the track. And then here comes a machine gun right alongside of me, and the bullets going the other way. I know I can never do this before. I pulled myself with one hand, laid my belly on that latch, and I dove head first down inside the tank. I says, God must have done that for me. There's no way I can do that physically, even at the top shape. But there it was, you know. The other incident was I never dug a foxhole because tankers never usually, because you're in tanks. We pulled into an area, and for some reason I dug a foxhole. And then I was about 3 feet, and I dug a little slit underneath so I can slide in. Sure enough, here comes a barrage of stuff. It killed a lot of our headquarters people, the first sergeant at that time, the communications sergeant, not the communications, the supply sergeant, and the entire, the armor and stuff of that nature. They threw air bursts all over the place, and I was in that slit and watching shrapnel go down in that hole alongside of me. If I laid on my stomach or my back, I would have shrapnel all over me. I never got one piece. What made me do that? And I slipped out, and that's the only time I ever dug a foxhole. So maybe that's good Lord right there. 2 cases right there, you know. How could you do something miraculously, something that you can't, you know? In Battle of the Bulge, did I tell you? No, I didn't tell him about that.
I've got about 4 minutes left on that tape. Go ahead.
Right. When we got up to the Battle of the Bulge, and we were right in the combat, did I tell you about? Yeah, I told you that story, because I was telling it out. I don't know how many.
Yeah, you did.
Mm-hmm. One night, it's probably right around December 23rd, before we went into attack on Christmas Day. And we heard a voice out there, hey Joe, which is ordinary, and you watch yourself. But you could see the guy because it was all snow, and he's crawling towards the tank. So we hollered at him, you know, to come up, put your hands on your head and come to the tank. And he did. So as we got him close, I put him in the tank recovery vehicle. You know what that's? It's a maintenance vehicle that works on if you throw a track or something like their mechanics on and stuff like that. And it's built like a tank, only it's open on top, real thin armor. I put him in there, and I call the colonel of the battalion. I says, I got a prisoner here. What the hell am I going to do with him with a tank? He says, shoot the son of a bitch. I says, no, I ain't going to kill nobody in cold blood, you know, anything like that. I found out he was a Pole in the German army. We ended up playing pinochle with him. so then in the morning, when it got first light, we told him, get out and just head west. Infantry will pick you up. So stuff of that nature. And
that's a good story. That's a good story.